myself, Tathagat Maitra. So I have been part of Microsoft Dynamics practice for last 12 odd years. So like I started my career with Dynamics itself. So that is my first experience. So I worked in a Big Four consulting firm for close to 6 years, and then I moved to a large Dynamics 365 community for a big IT company. So that is that were also I've spent 6 years, and now I have been working for a Dynamics 365 Gold partner as a solution architect for supply chain, warehousing, production, all these modules. So primarily, I have worked in the supply chain module, I'd say, but I have worked as a for few projects, I've worked in project management or some bit of part of finance, but mostly my experience lies with Dynamics 365 supply chain, or what I would say as a advanced supply chain, what we call as now, right, which includes our advanced warehouse management, our landed cost, our transportation, um, our change management. Then we have our asset management. All these different new modules are coming up, and with the advent of AI, we Microsoft is also coming up with few special modules, or what we call as special additions to the Dynamics 365 product. Namely, like in the one solution which I was working on like few days back itself, it's called intelligent order management. That's like a new solution which Microsoft is coming up. And similarly, we have our based on our GenAI capabilities, we are having all our Power Platform and Power capabilities also are getting more accustomed. We are getting more accustomed with those capabilities, and clients are also accepting that. So this is the Dynamics 365 screen. So I'll also quickly show you from the system itself. So I have just opened like a demo environment. So I'll also quickly share those details. But let's just go through the content first. Like what do we have stored in the pipeline, right? When we start the training. So when I am just quickly going through the content from the Visualpath team itself. So broadly, we are categorizing the AWM process between two things. One is called inbound process, and the other is called outbound process. So when we call as the inbound process, so this is I'll just quickly share the slide so which will help us. So this is kind of an agenda what we have. So inbound process and outbound process are the main process what we are going to discuss, and in those process we are going to cover like from the basic system, like if you raise a purchase order, how you are actually receiving that purchase order into the system using warehouse management capabilities. And when I say receiving, it includes everything, like how you define your work structure, how a warehouse worker who has the responsibility of a warehouse worker only, he doesn't know how to open the purchase order, but how can he see a purchase order? How can he see the what is the associated work? How can he will be able to understand what is my pick and put work? All these things we will going to cover on that, and also at the same time how we are doing a receiving a shipment, doing receiving a partial shipment, how we are booking those shipment into the system, what is the impact into the system, all these things we are going to cover in the inbound process. And similarly, when you say inbound process, there are related journals also, right? How we do a simple transfers of the inventory, how we do a simple movement of the inventory, all these things are also covered in the inbound process. So broadly, when we say our the Dynamics 365 capabilities related to warehouse management, it covers our inbound process and outbound process. And that inbound process, if I go and show you, so I'll just quickly make the screen bigger. So if I show you the inbound process, so this is basically nothing but we start from having the PO, right? And from the PO, how the vendor is sending his information, right? So vendor sends some information, and based on that, we go and receive those information in the system, and we do know that okay, maybe I'm receiving 50 different quantities into the system.
What
So
is
how
meaning
do
by ASN?
advanced shipping note is nothing but the information that the vendor is sending. So basically, for vendor, they are sending a sales order packing slip, right? So that sales order packing slip is nothing but for a company who is receiving is called an advanced shipping note, and that advanced shipping note is something, you get into the system, and that details out what are the items you are receiving. So as an example, let's assume that we have maybe raised a purchase order which has maybe 50 different line items, but the vendor for the first delivery time he is sending 20 of those line items. So at that shipment note, you will receive details of those 20 line items and what is the quantity that you are going to receive. And we can add on top of that if there are batch numbers, if there are serial numbers to those items, right? So that helps the system because most of the businesses they deal with batch items or the serial items. So those details are keyed into the ASN, what we call as advanced shipping note. And how do we receive that? And after receiving, what is the role of the warehouse worker? Because this complete process of this warehouse management, I'll quickly show from the system itself. When I see this warehouse management, I'll just quickly show you from the module. So let us get refreshed. So when you go to the advanced warehouse management module, so as an implementer, so when you do the configuration, so when everything is set up into the system, so the persons who are actually using that, right, through mobile device or through web simulator, it's in like 99% cases they're using mobile device system. Those are basically warehouse persons. So they are warehouse workers. So they are not like highly qualified accountants or chartered accountants or like who are sitting in the back office, right? So what they are doing, so they are having one a scan gun or what we call as a scanning machine, right? So each item they're receiving, they're scanning those items and receiving into the inventory. So doing that part into the system is a very minimal work in their daily time schedule. So consider this a big warehouse, right, for Amazon or Flipkart. So there are thousands of workers doing on. So they are moving one part to another part. They are moving all those items. So scanning each item, registering each item into the system is a very small part in their day-to-day job. So we need an efficient system which actually helps them to identify those work and help them to maintain the inventory into the correct position, right? So that is the basic work what we need to do. So so when we define like let's say if you go to a finance module, so they most of the users will be sitting in the back office, so they have different resources to hold on. So if they are stuck at something, they can also google it out, right? They can also understand, okay, I am getting an error, I have an option of going to the internet and I can find out what is the issue, so they can solve something. But from the warehouse team, they do not have that, and for warehouse the efficiency is the key thing, how efficient the system is and how quickly they can perform that option. So that is why, so there is a difference between when you understand a process for maybe a normal sales order, purchase order creation, or you are processing something for warehouse, because efficiency and the effectiveness of the system is very much important in this case. So that is why how do we set up the system, how do we process the work quickly, what will be my total configuration, so those play a key role into the system. So if you go back to the ASN part, right? So in the warehouse, so there is a role of manager, then there is a role of this warehouse worker, right? So all these things are part of my inbound process. And in when you say that there is an inbound receiving, so I consider that I will have first my purchase orders getting created, and that is getting, so from here I can go and create simple purchase order, and from that purchase order itself, at the time of receiving, how efficiently I have designed the system which will help the warehouse team to perform that. And for that, we have different configurations set up. So that we'll go through in the session itself. So how do we design the mobile app, right? How do we design the system so that let's say you have 50 items coming in one shipment, you have a work created which will guide them to pick those 50 items at once and put them into some location so that they don't have to come back again and again to the same location. So it's like a efficient way of doing this, right? So you have maybe 50 items and they are coming with a warehouse crate or car. I think you have seen all those pictures. So they don't have to come again and again to pick those items based on us. So they have to do come one. pick everything and go back, right? That is the efficient way of doing. So those things come into the picture. So that is for inbound, and most of the inbound process involves how we do a receipt of the purchase order. And if we go to the content also, you will see our most of the content for inbound is related to our PO, which is the right thing. And similarly, how we process the load, again, these are all related to our course, and we'll do a simple quality process also, because you know, if you receive something for incoming material, you need some quality process also, right? Because some quality checks will be there. So that will be also be part of our session. And similarly, we have like similar transfer orders processing. I'll go to the outbound part first. Let me complete the inbound, and similarly, we'll have inbound process related to our different event journals or something, right? So we have our I'll show you. So we have different warehouse process related to movements, transfers, inventory adjustments, inventory counting. All these things are part of our complete inventory management. Right? So this is what is understand as an inbound part, which is one big chunk of our session. And the next part, which is again the big chunk, is our outbound process, right? So outbound is nothing but you are shipping your sales order. So again, you have a purchase order, and now you have your sales order. Again, this is the sales part. When you are doing all these things, these are a job of someone who is sitting at the back office, who is or a sales representative, who is creating all the sales order systems, right? And then he is actually releasing this to the warehouse, and again, then the process comes up again, right? How do we efficiently manage this picking process? Because I have seen, I'll just give you a practical example. So there was one customer who had like maybe 1,000 orders to be shipped. So there was a B2C company. So they had like 1,000 orders to be shipped in a half a day, right? So 1,000, that's an average number. So if 1,000 orders to be shipped in maybe 6 hours, and those are also involves packaging also, right? You get your boxes, right? Those packaging are also involved. So their process has to be very efficient, right? So at the night, all those sales orders were released through our batch processes, and the works were also created. And at the same time, the works were designed in some way that there were maybe 10 different users, warehouse workers, and they were receiving those items actually from the inventory and putting into the packaging station. And that too in a 2 or 3 hours window. And the rest 3 hours were used for the packaging operation, where they were packaging everything. So 6 hours, and after the 6 hours, those 100, like on an average 100 sales orders has to be shipped outside the warehouse. So that is how we actually process this efficient system, and the Dynamics 365 capabilities have that. So see here, if you just look at the system here, so after the sales orders, they are picking the see all these are picking operation, right? They are scanning the item, move to the pack station, right, which I was saying, and packaging these items, and then move to the outbound pay door system. So this is how the warehouse management process works. And we have, if you see, we have all this see packaging operation, right? Packing, containerization. Then we have inbound, outbound shipments, all these different configurations we have, and that is how we design the system to identify that what will be my inbound and outbound operation. Again, when you say outbound, we are including mostly majorly sales orders, and we'll include partial shipment, complete shipment, and also when you are sending some serialized item or batch items, or when we have our packaging operation. Also, in outbound, we are transferring something from one warehouse to another. So that also involves the includes in the outbound operation. Okay, and this is like a morely majorly based on our inbound and outbound operation. Now, if you go deeper, we'll have our some inventory, small inventory operations also, which we have here, right? All these journals, our item arrivals, how do we do a simple quality operation, and simply we have our the different transfers, the movements. These are also covered over here from the outbound point of view. And also we have inventory management related to our counting operation, right? We have our cycle countings and everything. These are part of inventory operation, not an inbound and outbound, but that will also be covered, right? And this is more or less from what we call as advanced warehouse system. Another thing what we are going to cover is a separate module altogether, but we have simple operation related to warehouse with that also, what we call as landed cost. So landed cost is something that involves is a purely inbound operation. So we have a separate module also for that. So we can do a landed cost module without the advanced warehouse also. That is also possible. Also, we can do the landed cost with the warehouse process. So both works. And to know the landed cost is basically involves a purchase order which is coming outside your country as an import, right? So let's say Apple is manufacturing your iPhones in Chennai, right? So we have a Chennai manufacturing facility, but they are procuring all the chips, right? The major chips, the A21 Bionic chips and everything from Taiwan, because the major chunk of the chips are being manufactured in Taiwan for Apple. So when those imports are coming up for Apple, so they have to pay the customs, right, to the Indian government. And from the customs, they give you all the different duties, right? You have your custom duty, all these different charges, and on top of that, they have ACEC charges, all these different. I'm talking from the Indian point of view. So all these different charges are added on top of the customs, right? So all these things. So when you know that, let's say from Taiwan, there is a shipment coming in, and you have your PO created, and those shipments will be coming in maybe next month or so. Like you have a 30-day window, so you want to know, right, where is the shipment. Is it like in sale, or is it has it crossed our border? What is the status? What is the status of in the loading dock? All these things you can maintain through the landed cost module, and also you can load all those charges, your customs duty, into your product cost. Because when you buy a phone, right, all these customs, all these different things are added on top of our phone cost, which we do not see definitely, because those are not explicitly given into the phone cost, but that is actually present into the cost, because we know, because this is how the product or the manufacturing company works. So that process is being maintained through the landed cost module, and we will see a process for landed cost through the warehouse process itself. So warehouse management is not the main focus for landed cost, but it is like an additional capability what we can do with the landed cost module. Okay. And also, in line with this is in line with our inbound operation, because this is completely through our purchase order. And through outbound process, we have another module which we going to cover briefly, which is our what we call as transportation management. So this is nothing but how you define how you manage your transportation, basically how you manage your trucks, or what we call as a load. You have big containers, right? Big container cars, which is moving from one city to another city for your like packers and movers, right? You know, packers and movers. Those have like big cars. They have all these products through barcodes. They move from one city to another, clear all the checks, border checks, and then they have like a 5 to 7 days window. Then they receive those items. So all these things we can manage through our this transportation management, and this is mostly used for the inbound operation. Sorry, outbound operation. So inbound also we can do, but the capabilities are mostly for the outbound operation. So how we manage our charges, right? Freight charges. So maybe the transporter is charging you 2,000 rupees. How we do these 2,000 rupees on top of your sales orders? All these things can be managed from the transportation management. So, in a nutshell, when we go deep into the course, if we go simple just by looking into the picture, so this is just a very broad overview, but if you just looking into the course content, we'll focus more on the purchase order inbound receiving. So that will be the first part. Then we'll focus more on the outbound process through the sales order. Then we'll do some simple inventory process related to our movement transfers. And then we'll go deep down into our landed cost, so which is like an advanced process for purchase orders. And also for shipping process, we'll go into the transportation management. That is the second most important topic for the advanced warehouse management. And similarly, if we go down more, we'll have the like when you do a simple sales return, how do we return like receive those items? Those are like maybe one day course, like one day I can show you. So those are not like the major part. The major focus is the inbound, outbound, landed cost, and the transportation management that we are going to cover. And along with this, we'll definitely see what are the first thing is the major configurations needed. How do we design the system? That is the first thing. And second thing is how do we operate the system? So these are the two major things we are going to cover. So as a consultant, when you are asked different questions by the customer, you should have a good product knowledge and you should have a good, I'd say, business knowledge. So both is needed because they will talk in the business terminology and you have to answer by understanding the business terminology in the product terminology. So you have to know both the domains, and how you can do that, that also we are going to cover into the course. Okay.